Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be sharing the complete masterclass on how to lose belly fat, especially specifically for women. So I'm going to be going over like the different types of belly fat as well as the specific tips and strategies on how you can actually address them. All right, so let's dive into it. If you guys are new here, my name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and it is week 2 of the summer challenge that we have going on right now. It's week 2, and we're following the 6-week summer meal plan. It's a limited release meal plan that's really focused on eating the most nutrient dense foods to help support a body fat loss goal while making sure that we're also maintaining our metabolism and maintaining our muscle in the process. There's over 50 brand new recipes. Actually, they're so delicious, so simple, so tasty. My toddler absolutely loves the meals as well, so very family friendly too. It's a limited release meal plan. We're following it right now. Once you own it for life, but it is only available for a short time. So if you want to grab it, you can find the new limited release meal plan down in the description below. All right, so let's dive into the details of today's live stream where we're talking all about belly fat. So there's really 2 different types of belly fat. You guys have probably heard of this before. There's the visceral adipose tissue. You'll often see it labeled as like VAT, VAT. This is the type that's actually around your organs. So you don't really actually see it from the outside. You often will see this as like more of the pot belly look where somebody might have like the protruding belly but doesn't actually have the type of pinchable fat that you can see on the outside. That's because the fat is actually underneath the like layer of skin. It's even deeper than that. It's underneath your muscle tissue. It's within your organs, or rather like around your organs. This is much more dangerous. This type of belly fat or fat that's around the belly is much more dangerous for our health. It can result in a lot higher inflammation and a lot higher risk of chronic disease. But then there's also the subcutaneous adipose tissue. This is the type that you probably are more like visually familiar with, where you can actually see it. So it's the type that you can physically pinch from the outside because it's just underneath your skin. It's not deep within your around your organs. This is technically speaking like less dangerous type of belly fat. However, there has been research showing that regardless if you have weight gain specifically around the belly, whether it be that subcutaneous, which is again underneath the skin, or the visceral, which is around your organs, either way, they both can increase your risk of chronic disease, which is why we're talking today all about the different tips and strategies on how to actually address belly fat. All right, so for actually assessing if you have belly fat or how much belly fat you have or like what risk level you're at, there's a couple different ways that you can measure this. This is one of my favorite ways, the tape measure, because it's so easy. Most people have some type of like flexible tape measure. You just need to make sure it's one that you can actually wrap around you. So in this picture, you can see that I have like one of those just like type that maybe seamstress might use, where it's flexible and you can wrap it around you. And what you're looking for, it depends if you're a man or a woman. So if you're a man and you have you're trying to get a measurement that's less than 40 inches around your waist. If you're a woman, you want one that's less than 35 inches. Anything above that is you're looking at like a higher risk of chronic disease. There's also other ways that you can measure it. So there's DEXA and InBody. So DEXA is the most expensive, the most difficult to do, but also the most accurate. So if you wanted to go into your doctor and get this done, you can. There's also some like different pop-up shops that can do it too. It is a lot more expensive than these other options, but it's useful to do every now and then, especially if you also are checking in on your bone density, which is what DEXA is really used for. And then there's the InBody. The InBody is a type of scale. It's a like very expensive scale. They have less expensive ones, but the very expensive one that you often will find at gyms is the type that can give you a better idea of if you do have some type of like visceral fat going on. And that's my like second best favorite. The tape measure is like really great, InBody, and then DEXA. Those are the 3 different options that are going to give you an idea on if you do have that belly fat and how the progress that you're making on addressing it. And then there's something called tophi. So this is an actual scientific literature term. Like if you were to look on PubMed or Google Scholar or something, you could type in tophi and you'll find studies that are talking about this type of condition. And it's called, or it stands for thin on the outside and fat on the inside, aka tophi. So what this means is that you might appear thin on the outside, but you have a lot of that visceral fat, or aka your fat on the inside. So this is also quite dangerous. In fact, I would argue almost more dangerous than if you have that visual appearance of the pot belly or have the weight gain that you can see specifically around the belly. I see this as more dangerous because it's less obvious that you have this going on. You might appear that you're thin and fit and healthy from the outside, but you could have a lot of this visceral fat going on. This is usually going to be found with the DEXA. You can't really find it with the tape measure. You need to get that next level type of reading to actually assess if you have tophi. So you can have some possible symptoms. Like if you have some of these symptoms, then you might want to check out that DEXA to see if you do have a lot of that visceral fat going on. So if you have a high A1C, which is a measurement of your fasting blood sugar, if you have abnormal triglycerides, so this would be like your triglycerides are very high, or HDL is very low, or your LDL is very high. If you have that imbalance, then that's another sign. If you have PCOS or if you have fatty liver, all of these could be possible symptoms or signs that you have that tophi going on, or thin on the outside, fat on the inside. The causes of it are largely genetic. Not that you can't address it, it's just how people gain weight. So some people might just gain weight very much so viscerally, and that's where you're going to get the like thin on the outside, fat on the inside. But it still is a result of a lot of these same lifestyle factors that we're going to talk about on how to actually address it. It's just you are storing fat in a different way than other people, and that's where you get the tophi. Okay. So the actual causes of belly fat, like I mentioned, genetics, they're going to store fat in different places. Like there's that apple shape, there's the like pear shape where some people gain weight naturally more so like around their hips and their butt and their thighs versus around their belly. But there's also still, especially when it comes to visceral fat, a lot of concrete causes. So insulin resistance is a really big one. In fact, most of the things that we're talking about within these causes are really like trickle down side effects of the insulin resistance or lead to insulin resistance. If you're a man or a woman, men tend to have more visceral fat than women. Age as well, which it's probably because where postmenopausal women tend to have more visceral fat, probably because insulin resistance tends to go up postmenopause. Low muscle mass is another one. Again, probably because low muscle mass can lead to insulin resistance, stress, poor sleep, eating a lot of sugar and processed carbs, alcohol, all of which can lead to insulin resistance. So that's why insulin resistance is listed first there. These can also increase subcutaneous fat. So that other type of fat, the type that you can pinch and like feel from the outside at the same time. So visceral and that subcutaneous can have a lot of overlapping causes, but especially when combined with the genetics aspect, these are the causes of visceral. All right, now let's get into the fun stuff on how to actually burn belly fat. Now, I have a lot of videos on the core principles because there are core principles that you do need to address if you want to make sure that you're actually specifically tapping into fat burning and making sure that you're not losing muscle in the process. Because, like I mentioned, there is a genetic component that's a huge genetic component that comes down to where you're going to be burning body fat. And you need to make sure that you're actually in a fat burning state in order to even be burning any type of fat. So the core principles I talk about in all my programs, like the one that we're following right now for the challenge, as well as a lot of my videos, include reducing or removing ultra processed foods, ideally even just removing pretty much all of at least the ultra processed carbohydrates and preferably fats, because these are the type that are so easy to eat beyond our body's needs and have been found to increase either insulin resistance or just increase weight gain around the belly specifically. Eating less sugar in general, again, addressing insulin resistance because of that. Eating more protein, which helps us to maintain muscle, helps to make sure that we're not going to be getting those sugar cravings because protein makes us feel full and satisfied, helps stabilize our blood sugar, all of which help to improve that insulin sensitivity. Strength train, which helps to absorb that excess blood sugar from the blood supply, again, helping to improve insulin sensitivity. Low glycemic load carbohydrates, something I talk a lot about in my programs. Full food lists on that, again, due to the insulin sensitivity issue. And then 8 hours of sleep each night so that you can reduce your sugar cravings, improve insulin sensitivity, and help to balance out cortisol, which also leads back to weight gain around the belly. So those are like the core principles that really, like, they're non-negotiable. You need to make sure that you're addressing those in addition to the strategies that we're going to talk about in just a second. But those are like the core principles. And because I talk so much about those in all my other programs, videos, etc., I'm not going to go too deep into those. I want to go into, once you've addressed those, the additional steps that you can get into, which is what we're going to talk about right now. All right. So the first tip for how to address specifically belly fat is to eat more fiber. So there's a couple of reasons why this is helpful. First of all, it can help to balance our blood sugar level, which, as we talked about, blood sugar and insulin sensitivity is really important for helping to address, especially the visceral fat. But also it helps to improve our liver detoxification, which can also help to improve the processing of fat as well. So this is something with increased fiber. Those of you guys who have followed my 7-day detox, this is very familiar to you. But when you increase your fiber intake, it can help with that phase 3 of liver detox. So you can actually get rid of those toxins that your body has just processed. One of my favorite ways to get more fiber is with chia seeds. So you can see like a chia pudding recipe right there. This is one of the new chia pudding recipes from the program, that the 6-week summer meal plan that we're following right now. I'm actually making a batch of chia pudding to have for lunch right after this. But chia seeds are very high in fiber, and they also are very low glycemic load. They're very blood sugar stabilizing. So that's one of my favorites. You can also use edible basil seeds. And if you aren't very carb sensitive, or at least if you are doing some type of exercise, using lentils or chickpeas or beans are also very great ways to get in more fiber. Okay. Number 2 is to add 30 minutes of walking daily. So this specifically helps to absorb blood sugar, especially if you can break up those walking or the times that you're walking to be after meals, because after we eat and we go for a walk, it helps to get our muscles to absorb that excess blood sugar from the blood supply after the meal. And that in itself can help to improve insulin sensitivity, and just increased activity can also help to improve insulin sensitivity. But in addition to that, walking has been found to help reduce stress levels and possibly even reduce anxiety. And a huge contributing factor to insulin resistance, which again leads back to weight gain around the belly, is stress. So if we have high levels of cortisol, imbalanced levels of cortisol, and just consistent high stress, that can also make insulin resistance worse, or at least make it very difficult to address. So by going for especially if you can go for outdoor walks, and those walks specifically after meals, it can help to just attack that the insulin sensitivity from multiple different layers. And of course, it adds activity in a low impact way. So just the more active that we can the more we can introduce activity in just the day-to-day life, rather than just adding in a ton of high intensity interval training or other types of exercise that can burn our body out, but adding in some of this more just general activity can help to improve that insulin sensitivity. All right. So next up, tip number 3 is to get outside for at least 15 minutes daily. This kind of piggybacks on the walking one that we just talked about, especially because if it's nice enough to go outside and go for the walk, you can of course go outside. And walking, or specifically being outside in a natural environment of some type. It could just be a garden, it could be a park, it could be going to the beach, whatever it is. But being outside in a natural environment for 15 minutes has been shown in research to actually significantly reduce our cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. And when we can do that, of course, we can then circle back to helping to improve the insulin sensitivity. So if you combine your walk with also being outside, you get that like double down approach with these 2 tips. Okay, next up, tip number 4 is to swap out soda for sparkling water. Now, I love sparkling water. I have sparkling water every day. I have multiple times a day often. I could just have it straight, but I also like to add in lemon, or like in this case, element. But it does help when you're able to swap out soda for sparkling water to significantly reduce your sugar intake, especially if you're used to having soda. I heard a stat the other day, and don't quote me on it, but it was something about like, I think it was like 100, or Americans have on average about 150 liters of soda per year. I believe that's what it was, but that just sounds so high. So I'll have to double check it, but it's a lot of soda, and that's a lot of added sugar. And if we can just simply address the added sugar from our drinks and either remove or significantly cut that down by making simple swaps like this, that in itself can have such a big impact on our blood sugar levels, and a really big impact on helping to improve that insulin sensitivity. So you can get something like Spindrift, which is my favorite sparkling water option because it's just sweetened with fruit, or really flavored with fruit, because it uses such a small amount of fruit juice that it doesn't even taste sweet, it just tastes flavored. But you can also just have plain sparkling water, or you can make something like my hydrating grapefruit mojito, which is pictured right here. And that's from the new meal plan. So good. It's like a nice little mocktail hydrating drink. All right. And then next one. So tip number 5, don't drink caffeine past 12 p.m. This is also huge to help keep the cortisol spike, which is that stress hormone, to earlier in the day and not later in the day. This is to balance out our hormones to the positions that they naturally want to be in. We actually do want high levels of cortisol, specifically in the morning. It's like this big spike to help us get energy first thing in the morning. And then it's supposed to taper down throughout the day, especially once it gets to the evening, so that we can then get this natural increase in melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. And then we're able to get this deep, high quality sleep that is also going to help support the fat loss goals, the wellness goals, etc. But if you have caffeine later in the day, this could actually cause another bump in cortisol in the evening, which could then hinder melatonin from going up and then cause your sleep to be impaired. Plus, it can just increase that state of fight or flight throughout the day, not allow you to get in that calm state, which again, increased stress can also increase insulin resistance. So by having caffeine, just keeping it to the earlier part of the day when we naturally have this little cortisol spike anyway, just helps you better optimize our hormones. And then, of course, keeping it zero sugar, regardless of what type of caffeinated drink you're having. And yeah, ideally, if you are going to have anything after 12, just keep it to zero caffeine. So you could have like a decaf coffee, but just make sure that it is truly decaf if you really need to have a little bit of coffee in the afternoon. Okay, tip number 6 is intermittent fasting. There's a lot of research showing that intermittent fasting has been found to reduce waist circumference. So again, waist circumference is the way that we measure our belly fat, or it could be both visceral and in the subcutaneous type of belly fat or waking around the belly. So intermittent fasting has been found to have a lot of insulin sensitivity perks because we're just not eating as often. That's one of the main benefits of it. So I specifically talk about a form of time restricted, or it's a form of intermittent fasting called time restricted eating. So rather than doing other types like alternate day fasting where you're eating like one day and then you're not eating the next, there's been so much research showing that time restricted fasting, or time restricted eating rather, has a lot more sustainable benefits while still getting all those benefits of reducing the waist circumference. So this type allows you to still eat every day, and in fact eat with a reasonable eating window, like even just a 12-hour eating window or a 10-hour eating window, and just having those meals being eaten during a slightly smaller time frame than maybe just normal eating patterns of grazing throughout the day. So there's a lot of benefits seen with that. If you are new to intermittent fasting, if you haven't really dove too much into it, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to go about it. And you could completely see opposite results of what you're looking to achieve, or feel horrible with intermittent fasting if you're doing it the wrong way. So if you're new to it, check out my videos. I also have the complete intermittent fasting bundle that has helped so many men and women around the world, like Corolla, picture right here. I do have that link down description below if you guys want to check it out. Otherwise, just check out my videos as well. I have so much. I have over 1,000 videos on YouTube at this point, so a lot of really great information to get you started there. But this is just if you want more of those step-by-step details, as well as the meals to go along with it. Okay. Tip number 7 are, again, this is like optional, but stress balancing supplements, especially if stress is one of the issues that you're coming across as hindering your fat loss goals, especially around the belly. So there's a few that I found useful. Magnesium is one of my favorites because so many people are just not consuming enough magnesium anyway. And we need magnesium for high quality deep sleep, and high quality deep sleep is needed to help improve insulin sensitivity. So I personally take about 500 milligrams about 30 minutes before bed every single night. And that not only helps improve my sleep quality, but it also helps improve my muscle recovery too. So it's a win-win there. And then L-theanine is a great one. It's an extract from green tea. It's a type of amino acid that's extracted from green tea. And there's a lot of research around L-theanine helping to improve stress and anxiety levels. I was personally taking about 200 milligrams a day when my anxiety was really, really high, like 6 or 7 years ago, and it did help my anxiety levels personally. But there is research showing that L-theanine is great for helping to improve stress levels, which again is another factor when we are looking to specifically address belly fat. And then ashwagandha is another optional one. My husband loves ashwagandha. I didn't notice a huge difference when I took ashwagandha, but I think it's person to person dependent, because my husband does notice that when he takes ashwagandha, he does have much more balanced stress levels where he's not getting like overly stressed and overly overwhelmed. um, but yeah, so ashwagandha is another one that you could take or experiment with too if stress is an issue. Okay, tip number 8 is alcohol awareness. Now, I'm not saying you have to get rid of alcohol, but I do think it's important to have alcohol awareness on how it impacts your body, because how alcohol impacts everybody's body is going to be so different. For myself, I just can't drink alcohol because it so negatively impacts my body. Maybe I'm a slow metabolizer. I'm not really sure, but any type of alcohol will cause really poor sleep for me. It'll increase my anxiety levels. It increases my stress levels. I just don't feel good with alcohol. So if I'm going to have any type of alcohol, I kind of have to know that the next 24 hours, I'm not going to feel so great, because it impacts me so much. But other people, it might not impact them as much. Their sleep might not be as impacted, or their stress levels might not be impacted. A general rule of thumb, though, that is important across the board for everyone really, is that we do need to limit our alcohol intake, because our liver can only process so much alcohol, and just alcohol in general is going to negatively impact your sleep, and as a result possibly increase stress the next day, or at least stress on the body, which can be a way that we are not noticing that the stress is there. Like, we can have that physical stress without having the emotional stress, with something like alcohol, where you might not feel stress, you might not feel anxious, but your body could be under stress. And that's one thing that alcohol can do. So limiting alcohol, ideally, especially during the fat loss period, to 1 to 2 drinks per week. Again, zero added sugar alcohol is very important too, because we don't want to be having these cocktails that have like a lot of soda in it, or the simple syrups, or other alcoholic drinks that are just loaded with sugar, because then that just falls into the camp of just a sugar sweetened drink that has its own issues outside of the alcohol. So if you are going to have alcohol, make sure it's zero added sugar. I personally like to recommend to my clients dry farmed wine. So there's a company that you can check out that actually verifies that there's zero added sugar, that there's 0 grams of sugar per serving. And they're literally called dry farm wine. So it's a great option if you are still looking to have the occasional glass of wine, or just a good bet is to go for Italian or French wines. Those often are fully fermented and don't have added sugar in there. And then also making sure that you're not having that alcohol close to bedtime. So giving your body some time to actually process and break down that alcohol, so that you're not going to be getting a poor night's sleep. Okay, tip number 9 is cold exposure. So this makes fat more metabolically active, including the fat that's around your belly. So when it's more metabolically active, it makes it easier to burn. So in like scientific literature, this is called visceral fat browning. You don't need to know that. You just basically need to know that if you get cold, then your body starts to burn more fat, essentially. It's not like as simplified as that, but that's just like an easy way to think of it. So the way that you can maximize this is occasional cold showers or cold plunges. Not like in this picture. You don't have to go to like the Arctic or you don't have to have like a very expensive cold plunge. You could literally just take a cold shower a couple times a week and see some of those benefits. Especially people who maybe are have a lot of issues with like aches and pains, or they are having issues recovering from their workout. Sometimes taking an ice bath, where you literally just fill up your bathtub with cold water and you add a few bags of ice, is another way that you can take advantage of that. Of course, to your own tolerance. Make sure that you're not overdoing it either. 2 to 3 times per week is usually enough to see the benefits. Okay, and then tip number 10, this is really for the postmenopausal group specifically, because as we get into like that menopausal stage, that's when insulin resistance gets a lot worse for most people. And it's because one of the reasons why is because when we go through menopause, and even if you're a man and you're not going through menopause, as we age, we tend to see insulin resistance regardless. But because of that, we are seeing one of the reasons why we see that is because we have an increased loss of bone and muscle. which impact our metabolism and slow down our metabolism, but it also can lead to more insulin resistance. So specific tips for this category is to increase protein by 25%. I do have a free protein calculator. I don't think I have it linked down in the description below right now, but I will link it afterward, and that can help give you an idea of how much protein you need. This not only helps with like the hunger and the sugar craving so that you aren't going to eat foods that work against your goals, but also helps prevent the muscle loss from getting worse, or even helping to increase muscle a bit so that you can have that improved insulin sensitivity. This is a core tenet, but strength training is kind of a must at this point. At least resistance training. It could be body weight training. It could be Pilates. It could be like weighted yoga, something that is actually challenging your muscles, because just eating protein isn't going to really significantly stop your body from breaking down muscle and making that insulin resistance worse. You need to have both the protein for the repair as well as challenging your muscles a bit with the right type of resistance training exercise to send the signal to repair those muscles too. So you want to make sure you're getting both of those higher protein amounts as well as resistance training. And then removing snacking and sticking to low glycemic load carbs. So snacking and eating higher glycemic load carbs all can cause either consistent spikes in the blood sugar, which causes insulin to always be elevated, which makes it hard for insulin resistance to be improved. So we want to make sure that we're using the tools that help to improve that insulin sensitivity, which removing snacking helps insulin to come down in between meals, which can help improve the insulin sensitivity, and sticking to low glycemic load carbs, things like non-starchy veggies, cruciferous veggies, carrots, fruits, even like various legumes are low glycemic load. Even sourdough, like real fermented sourdough, can be low glycemic load. All of these can help to make it so you don't get a big blood sugar spike, which would cause the insulin resistance to be difficult to address either. Okay, guys. So we went into so much actually just now. I'm going to answer some questions. So if you could put 4 question marks before and after in the chat, then I'll get to as many as I can. But otherwise, if you guys want to join the challenge that's going on right now, we have so many science-backed tips and so many recipes and exact meal plans in this year's 6-week summer meal plan. And it is limited release. So if you want to get your hands on those delicious recipes that are really focused on protein, fat, and fiber, all the tools that we talk about on my channel, on my blogs, etc. Make sure you grab the meal plan link down in the description below. But anyway, I'm going to get to some questions right now. Okay, Melissa, does the protein goal change if you've had a gastric bypass? Now, this is not medical advice. Always have to add that disclaimer here, but the thing that I've seen with some of my clients in the past with a gastric bypass is just you can't physically eat as much food in one sitting. That's where, unfortunately, like snacking or small meals is more of what you have to rely on, because you just can't eat as much volume in one sitting. So it's not necessarily that the protein needs to be lower. It's just you probably need to be breaking up your meals into like not 3 meals, but maybe like 4 or 5 smaller meals, since you don't have as much space. Okay, Ren, I'm having the hardest time needing a nap around 3 when I quit caffeine before noon. So I would say there's a couple things that need to be addressed. First of all, it could just be caffeine dependence. Like it could just take a little bit of time for your body to readjust to the newer caffeine level. That is one thing that can take like 3 to 7 days. If that's the case, you kind of just have to muscle through it and get through it, and then you'll feel so much better. Otherwise, if you're noticing that even after you've gotten through that like withdrawal period, you're still feeling that crash around 3 p.m. or you're feeling that need to nap, it could be a couple of reasons. Either your sleep quality is really poor, which is highly possible if you feel that need to always rely on more caffeine. We need to figure out why you need more caffeine in the first place. So addressing your actual sleep, seeing if you are getting 8 hours. And if you are getting 8 hours, are you waking up feeling refreshed? If you aren't waking up feeling refreshed, then you probably aren't getting high quality deep sleep. One thing that you could do if you want like more data driven details is get something like a sleep or a Fitbit or some other type of fitness tracker that also tracks your sleep. Wear it to bed a few, like at least a week, I would say, to get some accurate data. And it gives you an idea of how much time you're spending in each type of sleep zone, like deep and REM sleep. And that way you can see if it's your sleep quality that's suffering and causing you to have the low energy later in the day, or if that's perfectly fine. So addressing your sleep, addressing the withdrawal period, both of those are important. The other aspect is also what you're eating, because if you're not eating the right types of blood sugar stabilizing foods that are rich in protein, fat, and fibers, and those low glycemic load carbs, then that can cause a blood sugar crash, which can make you feel really sleepy. So obviously the meals that I talk about on my channel in my meal plans, I would check out those and check out your meals to see if you are getting enough protein, if you're getting those low glycemic load carbs to stabilize your blood sugar level or not. Oh, thank you. Christy, hi girls, new here from California. Love your info. Well, welcome, Christy. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to scroll up a little bit, see if there's any other questions earlier. Yeah, Jackie said, I used to do cold baths after long, hard runs. So distances over 26 kilometers, it really helped with not having sore legs after hard, long runs. Yeah, that's where if you are very active, it can be helpful. I saw someone mention being careful. Yeah, with cold exposure, if you have your low metabolism or thyroid problems. Yeah, there's definitely, like with all strategies, there's caveats where some people might have different reactions. So of course, like this is educational. You want to make sure that you're addressing it to your own individual health factors too. But generally speaking, because having for a lot of people, getting the occasional cold exposure, especially if it's not extended periods of time, but like the 30-second or 60-second cold shower 2 to 3 times per week, for a lot of people that actually can be really beneficial for reducing inflammation in the body and helping to get that increased visceral fat browning or visceral fat usage. All right. Okay. Joya, after intermittent fasting for more than 10 years, and it seems the older I get, the less it's working. Okay. So this was kind of what my channel was first based on, like 8 years ago. The whole reason why I very first started, or the original videos I first put out, was in response to intermittent fasting and how so many people are using it, but they're using it wrong. And you can use intermittent fasting without really addressing your food and without really making too much changes to the rest of your life and see good results in the beginning, in the same way that you can just restrict your calories and see weight loss in the beginning. But as our body adapts to either the like slowing metabolism, because we're not actually addressing our food, we're not addressing the body composition with the actual meals that we're eating during either the just purely calorie restricted state or with intermittent fasting, then that's where you're going to see a slower metabolism and you're going to start to see either plateaus or weight gain. This is why what you eat when you use intermittent fasting matters so much, because if you just cut things out, it's essentially just calorie restriction. And that in itself has been shown time and time again to result in, like, what is it, 95 to 97% failure rate, because it just results that slower metabolism. So what you eat, I'm almost guaranteeing, I don't know what you're eating right now, but this is just what I've seen with so many people across the world, so many clients, so many A and peeps, that they use intermittent fasting and they don't actually address what they're eating. They aren't eating enough protein, fat, and fiber. They're snacking, they're grazing during their eating window. They're maybe having the wrong eating window time, having their eating window really late rather than earlier in the day. All of these things matter, especially for consistency and long-term results and long-term health and benefits. I have so many videos on this topic. I don't want to get too much into the weeds because this is a whole lot of information on its own, but I do have live streams on this topic. I think it's like beginner to intermittent fasting or intermittent fasting 101 playlist on my YouTube channel that you can check out that goes into a lot of those details. I also have the 21-day intermittent fasting program, again, where it has more of the step-by-step details. If you want to check that out and just kind of like cut through and get straight to the point, then you can find that on my website at autumnlnutrition.shop, or link down description below as well. Juliana, what was the update on the new plan? I think I saw that Guylaine already answered this. Yeah. One of the recipes was missing a cup and a half of yogurt or something, the minor update. Yeah. So that was last week. If you already purchased the 6-week summer meal plan, there's a minor update that was made and it was resent out to you guys. But if you already got it now, then the update is already in there. Stephanie, can you share the magnesium you take? Yes. So I currently take Life Extension magnesium. I've had great results with it. I know it doesn't necessarily use the highest quality magnesium, but I am curious to test out the magnesium L-threonate. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, but it's the much more expensive magnesium. So I'm not entirely sure if it's worth it because I've seen great results already with the one that I personally use. But I'm thinking of doing a video and like just actually testing it out for a month and seeing if it's worth the additional bigger price tag, and if it has a lot of great benefits. But yeah, the Life Extension one is the one I currently use, but I might test out a just pure magnesium L-threonate in the future as well. Hello, greetings from NYC. I'm catching up with the playback speed. Hello, thank you so much. Juliana, what do you think of natural organic sleep teas that help you fall asleep? It kind of depends on what's in there. If it's just something like chamomile, then or chamomile, then that's great. But if it has, and I don't know like the specific brand you're talking about, so I could be totally off here. But if it has something like melatonin in it, I'm not a fan of melatonin. I just found that since it is melatonin is a hormone our body naturally produces, when we take that habitually, I've seen so many people rely on it and they're not using the strategies that actually help them to get deep, high quality sleep. So it can result in over time not as great sleep. But if it's just something like chamomile, I never, is it chamomile? I've never been sure on how to say that. But if it's just like a simple chamomile or chamomile herbal tea, great. That's awesome. If that's what you need in order to help like unwind and relax, that's fantastic. One thing I will say though, some people, when they have warm beverages toward the evening time or just too much liquid toward the evening time, can make them wake up throughout the night to have to use the restroom. So it's like you're kind of getting the benefit of falling asleep faster, but then not ruining it, but getting the worst quality sleep by having to wake up throughout the night. So you just have to balance that out. And if you're somebody that can have the tea before bed and not have to use the restroom throughout the night, then great. Lillian, how do you define carb sensitive? I don't hear many others using that phrase. Is it the same as insulin resistant, or can you have one without the other? Oftentimes, people who are carb sensitive are insulin resistant, but it's not necessarily always the case. I think I saw somebody mention that I have a free quiz on this. So if you type, which I do, if you type like into Google Autumn Bates carb sensitive quiz, then you should find that blog post with the quiz pop right up. That would be a great one for you to check out. And I think I have a video on it as well, but I would just go ahead and find the quiz and that'll give you a little bit more information on there. Okay, I'm going to scroll back to the bottom because I see a lot more questions just popped up. Elizabeth, when I do your meal plan, I can lose 1 pound per week, and I'm trying to get to lose 2 pounds per week. I notice that when I get enough sleep, it's better. I struggle getting 8 hours. Yeah, so this goes back to those core principles where food and the type of exercise you're doing and stress are all very important, but also sleep. I shared this with my previous postpartum journey with my first baby, where I had a lot of difficulties losing those and the initial weight during the like first couple months. One of the reasons why was because I was getting such poor quality sleep because of having a newborn. And that's just like a simple fact of how our body works, that when we get poor sleep, it does make it harder to burn fat as fuel because we do get more insulin resistant. So I would take a look at what some of those, like why you're struggling to get the 8 hours of sleep. Is it a time schedule? Is it because you are having trouble winding down? Is it like, what are the barriers for you to getting 8 hours of sleep, and try and tackle each of those barriers one by one. Don't try and change everything at once because that can be a little overwhelming, but just doing one thing at a time. So like if you're not very active throughout the day, increasing your activity levels and walking outside during the day can actually help to improve your sleep quality. If you're finding that like you fall into the trap of binge watching TV at night, then just setting a hard stop point for when you're going to turn off TV and when you're going to start getting ready for bed, like an actual bedtime, then that's another great tool. But just going through each of these different barriers, and I do also have a specific live stream just on sleep. So it really dives into that because it is so important. So head over to my live stream tab on YouTube and just type in sleep in the search bar, and you'll be able to find all of my tips and strategies there because it is very important. Good question. Crystal, will this information also help with bloating? Uh, in a sense, where a lot of the strategies like intermittent fasting is very helpful for reducing bloating. That's why I first started using intermittent fasting to help address my gut health issues because I had such severe bloating and it was so painful. I had to lay on my belly after every time I ate, and my belly would be so distended. So, intermittent fasting is one tool. But this isn't specific to bloating because that's kind of separate issues. Bloating is typically caused by either sometimes food intolerances, but from what I've seen is just the bacterial fermentation that's causing bloating and gas buildup in the GI tract. And that has its own tools and strategies, intermittent fasting being one of them. Again, you can check out the 21-day intermittent fasting program for that. I also have a couple videos specific to bloating. So if you type in on my YouTube channel in the little search bar, bloating or like bloat, then you should find those specific tools as well. Oh, this is great. So Dawn said, I have a walking pad and try to walk for 1 to 2 hours per day while working. It's hard to walk fast though because the mouse, keyboard, talking on the phone. Yeah, no, I totally get it. I'm actually literally standing on my walking pad right now. I am such a convert. I used to not be able to like stand and work or walk and work, but ever since I got this walking pad, and I haven't even like taken my desk back down to a sitting position because I'm so much more productive this way. But yeah, walking slowly. So walking at all is going to show a lot of benefits. Um, if you are able to get these like periodic times where you can go outside and not only like walk a little faster, but also have varied terrain. So like even like 15 minutes of a walk outside where maybe you're going up a hill, or it's walking through like dirt or sand or something that's going to give you more of a varied terrain, can just help you to see better benefits. But any type of walking is better than zero walking. So if you're able to have this like capped out speed because you're working, you can only walk so fast while you're working. That's great. Then I would just stick to that and then try and add in like 15 minutes or so of a walk outside to get those additional varied terrain benefits as well as getting the benefits of being outside. But 1 to 2 hours per day, wow, that's a lot of walking. You must get like, what is that? 15 to 20,000 steps. It's a lot. Let me see. Missy says, I will be at scout camp next week. I'll bring some food to follow the program. Can I work towards the protein needed at each meal to make it work, or go an extra week when I get back? I would try as much as possible to still hit your protein needs even when you're gone. And you can do this with like grab and go items like beef sticks or meat sticks are great ways to help boost your protein amount. That's also pretty non-perishable. Obviously, protein powder is another great way. We have our great way. Get it? Dad joke / mom joke. Anyway, um, but we have our vanilla or chocolate or unflavored protein powder that you can check out. It's on my shop page. I don't think I have it linked down description below. That's another way to bump up the protein. Canned tuna is also fantastic because it is fairly non-perishable. You can just bring it with you, or actually the packets. So I don't know if you guys have seen the packets of tuna where you can literally tear off the top and like eat it straight out of the packet. I got a lot of those that I brought with like my family on our vacation in Hawaii for Sage to make sure that she was getting some good sources of protein when we were traveling. And that worked out really well. So I'll just bring some non-perishable items to help bump up the protein if you know that it's going to be tricky to get enough protein wherever you're served food. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple more questions here. Yes, I don't know if somebody asked that question, but Guylaine answered it. All Autumn's lives are posted after they end. So if you aren't able to watch this live right now, they're always on my YouTube channel under the live stream tab. So you can just find them there. Okay, this is a good one. So do you have any thoughts or videos on reverse dieting after reaching your quote goal weight? So I want to do a full video on this specific term because what reverse dieting is really saying is like getting out of the extreme calorie restriction But there's a lot of different ways that people do that. You could, in a sense, say that a lot of the program or the programs that I provide is almost a form of reverse dieting, because we don't focus on calorie restriction. We focus on eating the right types of foods to nourish the body, to help it to actually fuel the metabolism again. There's a lot of different ways to do that. There's like the traditional bodybuilder way as well, where it is going to be more focused on just calories. So yeah, it is important to make sure that we are properly fueling the body, and with the overall goal of making our metabolism healthier and not just being in this semi-starvation state. Um, that's not a really great description. I want to do a full video on that. So I'm going to actually write that down after this and do a full video just on this topic. But in a sense, yes, I do think it's important, especially if you are consistently in this low calorie state and all you're doing to achieve your weight loss goals in the past is just restricting your calories. We do need to get the body refueled again, and get your muscles to actually not rebuild, but to not be in this constant breakdown state so that we can rebuild the metabolism. That's what, especially my body recomposition program. So I have a beginner bundle that includes this 6-week summer meal plan right now that also has the body recomposition program that really dives more specifically into those strategies. So you can check that out. I don't think I have the beginner bundle linked down in the description below, but you can find it on my shop page at autumnlnutrition.shop. But I'm going to do a full video on reverse dieting because that's a good idea. Oh, that's awesome, Joyce. I love your lives and all the info you provide. I'm down 98.5 pounds and 15 inches off my waist thanks to all the info you've taught me. Thanks for everything. Wow, congratulations, Joyce. That's amazing. That's a huge accomplishment. Would love to hear more about your story. If you want to email us, info@autumnlnutrition.com. I love hearing you guys' stories. It seriously makes my day. Christy, there's so many options out there for walking pads and treadmills. Do you have any particular favorite? Because I live in such a small house and I have such a small office, I think it's literally just called the walking pad. And it folds up. I think it's one of the only ones that actually folds. So it goes like that. So I can easily store it. That does make it a lot more expensive, but for me, it's worth it because otherwise I wouldn't be able to have a walking pad because we just don't have the storage for it. So there are a lot of options that you can get that are less expensive, but don't have that folding feature. So they just are like more bulky and take up more space. So it just kind of depends on what you need. So if you need that folding feature, then I think it's just called the walking pad is the one that I have. Okay, guys. This was week 2 of our 6-week summer challenge. I have so much more information with the next 4 weeks, with 4 more weeks of live streams. Really excited to be sharing all this stuff with you guys and just the additional information to help further your guys' wellness journeys, especially during the summer challenges. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you got a lot out of this live stream. But other than that, I'm going to go chug a lot of water because I always feel so dehydrated after talking for like an hour straight. All right, guys, thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.